All right, everybody. Mission statement, learning for life. Southgate's vision statement, Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Brings us to item D, revisions and approval of agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Green.
I'd like to make a revision to the agenda and remove item M, which is the closed session.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Mr. Green. Do we have supported by Dr. Pomponio? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, and that brings us to item E, citizens' comments.
Yeah, see, yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Ms. Farmer, Ms. Altizer, you spelled out citizens. Do you want to speak in the citizens' comment or the employees' representative? Because there's two different places. Okay, well then, for the citizen comments, folks, remember that you have a 3-minute time limit. With a 3-minute time limit, you will be allowed to finish your thought. We do not respond individually to your thoughts. This is your time. We'll direct you to the right place, superintendent, or if this board discusses as a spokesperson for a board at a later time. Okay, so first up is Ms. Farmer.
Becky Farmer, 13785 Somerset Court, Southgate. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening as a proud Southgate alumnus, class of 1990. Thankful Southgate Community School District employee since 2003, and a pleased parent of a 9th grader at Southgate Anderson. As every married couple does, my husband and I discussed where we would purchase our home in 2008. We considered many downriver districts, looked at hundreds of beautiful homes, and researched school districts for our 1-year-old daughter to attend in the future. It was an easy decision for me, but I had to convince my husband why Southgate would be the best place for our future student and her parents. Our child began her education at St. Pius in Southgate. We were thrilled with the small class sizes and close-knit community we had while Morgan attended 3-year-old preschool through 4th grade. However, as she got older, my family decided a change was needed. We looked into surrounding districts and were considering Morgan attending one as a school of choice student. It just did not feel right. And we decided to enroll Morgan at Shelters Elementary for her 5th grade school year. 5 years later, we are happy with our decision. Every single staff member at Shelters made her feel loved, welcomed, and treated her with kindness. Some of these staff members include Mrs. Cinder Gundick, retired administrator, Mr. Mike Wheaton, Mrs. Debbie Pappas, retired teacher, Mr. Andy Garden, Mrs. Tamara Nagy, Mrs. Teresa Brennan, retired teacher, Mr. Dave Pratt, Mrs. Kim Gutner, Mrs. Carla Golos, Mrs. Mary Pisecki, retired teacher, Mrs. Trish Beeson, and Mrs. Lynn Costas. We would often ask Morgan how she felt about her new school, and she would say, "The teachers are so nice, and they help me with my work. The students are nice too." The positive feelings did not stop at Shelters. They continued through Davidson and are still felt as a freshman at Anderson. In an effort to save time, I will highlight some additional impactful employees who are standouts for Morgan. Mrs. Tracy Kroll, Mr. Dennis Kemp, Mrs. Melissa Sikora, Mrs. Wendy Smith, Mrs. Sarah Turner. There is a teacher shortage nationwide, and employees are quitting at alarming rates. Nationwide, school staff employees are retiring early, adding to the already concerning shortages. Colleges are finding less students who are interested in becoming an educator and are graduating even less as the years go by. As an alumnus, employee, and parent, I have Titan pride. We have a responsibility to continue to make Southgate Community School District not only the best place for students and parents, but also for its employees. It takes all of us together to make that happen. We must retain and hire the best for our children and build back together. Thank you.
Ms. Altizer?
Good evening. My name is Beth Altizer. I live at 15977 Drysdale in Southgate. I'm an alumnus of Southgate Anderson High School and parent of 2 recent high school graduates. I'm also a community stakeholder and first grade teacher at Grogan Elementary. I'm very proud to be a Titan. I'm speaking today to share some thoughts regarding the Southgate Community Schools. My family moved to Southgate from Detroit when I was 8 years old. My parents made the decision to move largely so my brother and I could attend great public schools. I was fortunate enough to attend Ford Line Elementary, Garrish Junior High, and Southgate Anderson High School, graduating in 1996. During my years in the school system, I was positively affected by so many wonderful teachers and staff. Principals like Mrs. Eileen Devine, support staff like Mrs. Lois Johnson, teachers like Mrs. Donna Goodrich, Mrs. Marilyn Saludo, Mr. Ron Gallinat, Mr. Jim Skura, and countless others who played important roles in making me who I am today. When my husband and I started discussing where to send our children to school years later, the choice was clear. We wanted to send them to public school in Southgate. We were a school of choice family for the first 8 years of our children's school career. We drove 20 minutes each way to take our boys to a place we felt would educate their hearts as well as their minds. I'm happy to say my family was able to move to this community we love 7 years ago. The Southgate school staff is truly a family. They not only educate but care for our children during the many hours each day spent away from home. Thank you so much to Kimberly Gervasi, Lynn Ricarian, Bridget Smith, Kathy Malicki, Melissa Kasperzak, Todd Kovac, Fran Witkowski, Tracy Kroll, Rick Kruger, Pat Middlestat, Jason Doyle, Tim Sohn, Michelle Cieslak, Brendan Walter, Jen Furcus, Frank Filardi, Paula Warren, and so many others who have been a positive influence in my children's lives. I will forever be thankful for their love, care, and dedication to our students. I started substitute teaching in Southgate in 2010. Working with the incredible staff in Southgate inspired me to complete my degree in elementary education. My goal was to finish school and secure employment in the district I love so much. With the support from this school community, I was able to complete my pre-student teaching hours and student teaching program entirely in Southgate. Following student teaching, I worked as a PBIS and academic interventionist at Ford Line and Shelters. Upon graduation, however, there were no full-time elementary classroom vacancies, so I did leave for a short time to teach in another district. Fortunately, I was able to return home for the 2020-2021 school year in a first grade position at Grogan, and I'm thankful for that each day. Public education has been a hard place to work in and dedicate yourself to these last.
Never isolated it. No doctor, no scientist, no Fauci, no CDC, no one on the whole entire earth has ever isolated COVID-19. So my question is, they had a a thing with the senators, and they were trying to see if they wanted to do a vaccine passport. Only one senator rose their hand when they asked if they knew what the VAERS system was. Only one. But they were going to make a big decision about if we were have to have a vaccine in order to live in this society. Before you guys decide to mandate vaccines on your children and these school districts, because eventually it will come down to it, they're not getting rid of these masks. They're going to use this as a carrot until they make sure that all these kids have vaccines before they come to school. I want you guys to look up at the VAERS, VAERS, and look at the thousands of people that have died since they got the COVID-19 vaccine. It is, as of October 15th, 17,128 people have died. That is not including all of the horrible side effects that they've gotten from it. Some so debilitating they can't work, they can't do anything, they can't take care of themselves. They're in hospitals, they're getting blood clots, near death. That's only 1%. That is 1% of the VAERS. One. They only report, the Harvard Education had done a study on it, and it's only 1% of the people are reporting it. So it's more likely 5%, which is 85,000, or 10%, which would be 171,000 people are dying from this experimental biological injection. It's not a normal vaccine. This will change your genome from God. This is not a normal vaccine, it's biological. The Senate meeting last week, deciding about the passport, that was really important. I want you guys to really make sure you research the VAERS before you decide to give these to your children. I know you guys really don't want the masks. I know you guys want to go back to normal. I want to really clarify, please research the VAERS. And how many kids are getting myocarditis, pericarditis? They will never have normal hearts again. I've seen too much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Billy Schultz.
Good evening. My name is Billy Schultz. I live at 13711 Castle. I have two girls that attend Southgate schools, a first grader at Grogan, and I have a three multi-athlete at freshman at Anderson High School. One, why are we still breaking the law that states no health department can mandate a mask or vaccine on anyone that is under 18? We do not have to comply with the Wayne County Health Department. A mandate is not a law. We do not want mask or vaccine mandates in our schools. Also, we ask you not to allow these vaccine clinics in our schools. Have you done your homework on this SEL programs? The more I look into the programs, and all boys aren't blue. We need to check our school libraries across our district and remove such books. I very much encourage you teachers to go to your libraries tomorrow and look and see if those books are in your libraries. And definitely read All Boys Aren't Blue or look it up. You'll be shocked. I would like to see Southgate and the Michigan State Board of Education join with all the other school boards across the United States and holding dues to the National School Board Association. There are 21 states that have withdrew from the NSBA, and others are holding their dues. This is because of the statement and the letter sent to the Biden administration about bringing the FBI in and calling us parents that care about our children and their education domestic terrorists. Do I look like a terrorist to you? Not. I've been at this board meeting several times, and I think I have been very polite to you all, and there's no domestic terrorists here in Southgate. We are tight and strong. Parents, teachers, staff, and board members, let's unite as one to fight for our rights and our freedoms for all. Unmask our students, teachers, and staff members. Do not require COVID vaccines on any of them. Give our teachers a contract and equal pay that brings them to the same level as other school districts downriver. This board should not
Ms.
make
Schultz, Ms.
medical
Schultz, your time is up.
decisions on any of us.
Thank you. And I'm gonna butcher this one too. That's why you gave these to me today. Ms. Shannon Seco, is that right? I'm sorry. I would not do that.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name's Shannon Seco, and I am a resident in Wyandotte, and I'm here on my sister's behalf and the community as a nurse and a community nurse. And I just wanted to come today and support my fellow community members also and the teachers. And I'm, going through this here with a community with nursing. We are speak our truths and speak our concerns with our community, with our children. And this is the thing that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to come and talk to you about our concerns. And that's what happens, is that we don't co-parent with the government. We want to work together as a community. And what's happening is very scary. Through my whole process of this, I've been to so many board meetings all through the city. And I also been to many committees, city commissioner meetings, health department meetings. I spoke to these senators. I work with a whole group of parents and a group of 10,000 parents all across Michigan. And I'm telling you, this is a scary situation because what's happening is we're not being listened to. We are in these meetings, we're being ignored. They are not telling us anything. They're not giving us truths. We have done FOIAs on several different issues with these numbers are giving us to keep these masks on our kids. Now, I'm a professional nurse. I know how to read these reports, and they are not reporting what they should be. And I understand that the health department is on their hands right now, but they are not being truthful with their numbers. I could tell you that wholeheartedly, and we question that, and they deny our FOIAs. So I'm coming to you as a community to help us fight and be our voice for our children, because long-time masking will affect them psychologically, physically, mentally. Thank you.
Mr. Ben Lewandowski?
You've been served. What that is a federal lawsuit, because I'm taking away our kids' federal rights.
No, you're out of order, sir.
This is a
You
citizen
served
comment
us,
section.
you served us, it's time for you to go.
No, I have 3 minutes to speak.
No, you don't.
No,
So what that is a federal lawsuit.
no, this is,
We're only doing this for the money. But in the meantime,
Sir.
we're killing our kids.
Mr. Robert Palowski. What's that?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Palowski. I live at 12757 Chestnut Street in Southgate. The first thing I'd like to start off with tonight is I stand with all the teachers here. Something needs to be done. We have been at this for almost nearly a decade with these salaries. These teachers deserve it. They deserve every right to have a full pay like other schools. I have the numbers right here in front of me. As we can all see, Lincoln Park at $95,267. And where are we at? 9th place at $83,325. And that is this current school year. That is terrible. That is remarkably horrible. Right there, this affects, because right here, this is a sign that when we lose teachers, our education goes down. Students will not have the proper education. And even though I'm a virtual student, I'm looking out for all my good fellow students and friends that are in person. And I deeply am looking out for them, for their future, especially for our graduates going into the next decade. This is honestly sad. And our teachers deserve better and a lot more than what's going on now. I have really nothing else to say but get something done. And I'm being very calm right now with this, because this frustrates me very much, to see our teachers suffer, to see our principals suffer, and everybody that works in this district. I am a proud Titan. I'm at every football game supporting our team so we can bring home a win. And I will definitely be proud. Put that on my tombstone. That is for sure. Proud Titan, always be a Titan. Let's get something done, and let's get it done fast. And I'm also looking forward to our audit presentation. Credits to Ms. Wilson. And I'd like to bring up one more thing. I left a sheet of paper on each board member's side regarding a trunk or treat event. Mr. Green will take over a little bit more during the information and announcements period. But thank you again for the time and opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you. Brings us to item F, presentations. First up is our audit presentation for Mr. Michael Georges from Yo and Yo. Mr. Georges?
Good evening. I think Barbara's going to get this set up a little bit.
See if this works now.
Seems like mine's thicker than Andy's.
I know. It works. Oh, we need the screen down. Where is it?
Yeah, we're going to have to put the screen down, I think. The audience can see it then. Isn't it?
That
Not sure.
switch on the
Well,
wall there has to work. This? It wasn't.
It does.
Board members, everybody has a printed copy of the presentation, yes?
Barb.
is on standby. Do I push that too?
Thank you. So you do have to have young people over this, Barb. You have to have young people for this. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, thanks for having me tonight. You do have a copy of the full financial statement, which is about 80 pages. If you have any questions about that, myself or Barb hopefully can answer any questions. Tonight, we just have a brief presentation to go through and ask any questions as we go along, or you can save them to the end, whatever you prefer. Okay, Barb, the next graph. Thank you. We'll talk a little bit about what we do as auditors. We do a number of different procedures. We look at your internal controls, and we test and evaluate them. Basically, we look at your controls and we say, what do you have in place? Are you following your own controls that you have? And that's one test that we do. A risk assessment. We assess areas in the past that may have been a problem, if there was any problems. Maybe we'll focus on those a little bit more in the future. We look at a lot of documents. We do analytical analysis. We look at current year to prior year, budget to actual, things of that nature. We do asset liability approach to get to your correct fund balance. Reports tonight, the reports that you got in your packet were auditors report on the financial statements. You had to report on expenditures of federal awards, which is what we call your single audit, and you had required communications with the board. The next graph is our audit results. It's our unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that you can receive on an audit report. And basically it says the school's financial record and statements are fairly and accurately presented and in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. The next graph, it's going to be a little harder to see probably. This is your balance sheet, the governmental funds. You have the general fund, you have the special education center program. These are all considered major funds. Capital projects funds, that's where you account for your bond issue. And then your non-major governmental funds, which is your cafeteria, debt, community services, student activity funds go into there. You can see in the general fund, cash is just over $1 million. Some of the bigger numbers are due from other governmental funds. That would be of $6.6 million. That's your July and August state aid that we have to accrue as of June 30th, because it's for that school year. It's for the 2021 school year. You have investments of just over $11 million, 11.6. You have total assets of $19.8 million. Under liabilities, one of your biggest liabilities is state aid anticipation note of $7.1 million. And then you have accrued salaries payable. Just like we had to accrue the state aid, you have to accrue teacher salaries for July and August. While they got paid in July and August, you have to still accrue that and record that expense in the 2021 school year. So we have total liabilities of just $13.9 million, and that leaves you with the fund balance just over $6 million. We'll talk a little more about fund balance in future slides. Special education program, it's a center program. It has no fund balance. Your revenues always equal your expenditures. The capital projects fund, you see that they have investments of almost $30 million, and we still have a fund balance of $29.6 million. So that's money you still have left to spend in your bond issue. Well, one thing I do want to say is no funds are in deficit, so you're not in violation of any state laws there. All right, Barb, the next graph, thanks. This is a real short summary of your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance by fund. You can see the general fund had revenues of $42.7 million this year and expenditures of $39.9 million. So you had an increase. Your revenues exceeded your expenditures by $2.7 million. Your fund balance at the beginning of the year was 3.2, and now again that fund balance we talked about before is just over $6 million. The special education program, center program, does not have a fund balance. The capital projects fund, as we talked earlier, they had revenues and other sources. They had a negative this year. You had some decrease in one of your investment accounts in the capital projects funds, so that was a negative this year, the net return on investment. You had expenditures of $2.2 million, which was spent on capital improvements, part of your bond program, capital project program. So you spent a net of $2.3 million out of the capital projects fund this year. So now your fund balance is just over $29 million. And the non-major funds that we talked about, you have revenues and other sources of $6 million. Most of that is debt, $4.5 million, and cafeteria fund is $1.1 million. And they have a total fund balance at the end of the year of $2.1 million. The next graph is the balance sheet just for the general fund. Again, comparing it from 2021 to 2020, you can see the assets are $19.9 million compared to $12.5, and the liabilities are at $13.9. $6 million. That represents roughly about 15% of the prior year's expenditures. Last year, that was about 8.3%. I know the board has a policy that should be 10% of expenditures, so you are over that. Many districts this year have added to their fund balance. There was a lot of federal money and state money that was given to school districts, and not all of it was spent. It'll probably be spent in the future, but I think you're going to find that most districts, the districts that I work on, which are a number of them, most of their fund balances have increased this year. The next graph shows you the original budget to the final budget, actual and the difference. The final budget for revenues was $42.3 million. You came in at $42.7, so you're over budget by 0.4%. Expenditures were a little farther off than that. You had a final budget of $42 million. The actual expenditures were just under $40 million, and so you were under budget by about 5%. So you were anticipating with your final budget of revenues exceeding expenditures by about $425, and it ended up at $2.7 million. So again, the revenues exceed expenditures by more than the budget. Expenditures were below budget at most categories, basic programs, added needs, instructional staff, school administration, central services, so it sort of was throughout the the functional categories. The next graph is a general fund comparison to prior year. In revenues and expenditures, you can see that the revenues were $42 million in 2021, the current year, and $39 million last year, so it's up $3 million. Federal revenue was up $1.9 million. Most of that was with the CARES Act, COVID funding. State revenue was up $1.7 million. Most of that was under a discretionary fund, Section 22B, and the MERS, the 147C money was up. So that was the two big categories for the state that went up. Your basic funding didn't change, but the categoricals did change quite a bit, as it did for most districts. So that made up most of that $3 million increase. Expenditures were up about $890,000 from the previous year. So again, you're continuing to build that fund balance. Your excess was $2.7 million, again, which added to your fund balance for the previous year. The next graph is a little different pie chart about where your revenue comes from. As you can see, most of your revenue comes from the state. Go up a little bit farther, Barb, yeah. The big green piece there is just over $30 million, or 70.7% of your revenue comes from the state. The federal revenue this year was $4.2 million, or almost 10%. So literally over 80% of your revenue is controlled by the federal and state government. The next biggest piece is the local, which is 12.9%, and most of that is property taxes. $5.1 million is property taxes. The inter-district revenue of $2.5 million. Your enhancement millage, which is that millage that you get from the county, Wayne County, is $1.4 million this year. All right, Barbara, next graph, we'll talk a little bit about expenditures. Look at this a little different way. You can see that the biggest piece of that puzzle is salaries at 48.5%, or $19.3 million. The next one would be employee benefits of $13.3 million, or 33.4%. The other ones would be purchase services at $4 million, or 10%. Supplies and materials at almost $2 million at 5%. You should notice that the 81.9% of everything spent is spent for salaries and fringes, which is very consistent because that's what it was last year. So they're very consistent from the previous year in terms of the percentage. So 82 cents of every dollar spent in a district is spent on either salaries or benefits. All right. The next one is general fund expenditures by function. This is just to show you that instruction means anything in the classroom. That would be anything from salaries to books. Anything that takes place within those four walls of the classroom goes under instruction. and you were at 25.6 million, or 64.2%. Last year, you were at 63.6, so you're up just a little bit under instruction. Supporting services is everything out of the classroom, from principals to building maintenance. And that was 34.3%, or $13.7 million. This is the per pupil analysis of general fund revenues, expenditures, and transfers in a line graph. We just want to show the green line is revenues and how they've increased per pupil from 2017 to the current year, and how expenditures have also gone up. There's a little bit of a bigger blip this year. As you can see, the gap between the revenues and expenditures per pupil. I just want to note here is that you still dropped, your enrollment did drop by 42 students, which you'll see in the next graph, but one thing I want to talk about is the enhancement millage here was $8.9 million over the last 5 years. So that really helped the district out. Without that, you would have been in a deficit if you kept spending the way that you had spent. The next graph, thanks Barb. This shows you your 10-year enrollment trend analysis. This is not unusual for districts downriver. In 2012, you were at 5,204 students. This last year, we were at 3,433 students, which is a net decrease of 1,771 students, or 34%. The foundation allowance. In 2012, I only have so many years on here, but it was much higher in 13. 2012 is when the drop-off, you had $2.3 million in state revenue that year. So since that time, at the bottomed out in 2012, it has risen to from $7,065 per student to just over $8,000 per student. So it was a $1,046 increase over the last 10 years, or 14.8%. When you look at that, 14.8% is really pretty small for a 10-year increase. The next one is, this is your fund balance. You could see back in 2013, you were at a deficit of $4.9 million. When your foundation allowance dropped suddenly and the MIPSRS rate was increased and your student enrollment declined, we talked about this every year, it was a perfect storm, and that's what happened. And so you had that, and from that point, you started building to back up. So pretty much every year you've increased your fund balance, even in the face of declining enrollment and small foundation allowance increases. So it's been going up. General fund is a percentage of expenditures. As you see, we have to use a chart for 2019, 2020 for this, because obviously the school districts have not filed their reports with the state yet. And so last year, under your peer group, which should be the 3,000 to 3,400 category, it was at 16.27%. My guess, though, is that number is going to rise 1 or 2% this year. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be around 18% fund balance, and right now you're at 15%. So you're still below your peer group, but obviously you're better than you were in prior years. The next one is MIPSRS rate history. Again, just to show everybody that the expenses have gone up. There's been a 66% increase in the MIPSRS rate from 2010 to 2021. Now it's standing at 28.21. I think that was for basic MIPSRS. There's so many different rates now, though. Future challenges, state economic and political conditions. Obviously, the governor, legislature, are always battling, so that always puts a strain on schools, what's going to happen. You have COVID issues, you have economic uncertainty, you have retirement rate increases, could have state revenue fluctuations, enrollment trends, rising healthcare costs, your pension OPEB obligation. We've talked about this in prior years. There's this huge unfunded liability that's out there for retirement and for healthcare after retirement. Right now, yours is at $97 million. Again, that's actuarially determined by the state. It's on your books. It's not in your general fund, but it's on your district-wide statements. New accounting pronouncements, that always puts a strain on school districts. The biggest one coming out now is the new lease standard. I don't think it should affect you too much, but that one's coming out next year. And I think that's all I have. I do want to thank Barb and Sharon and their staff for the professionalism, and we got through it another year. We appreciate it, Barb. Thanks for all your help. And if you have any questions, I'm glad to entertain those.
Board, would you have any questions? Go ahead, Dr. Capone.
So the increase in assets from 2020 and 2021, is that from grants and COVID funds, ESSER funds?
The assets?
Yeah.
Some of it is because your fund balance did go up 2.3 million, so that was it. And you also, your liabilities went up as well because you had your state aid note was bigger. So that's part of that, where your assets went up, because your liability of the state aid went up. But it went up 2.4 million because of your revenues exceeded your expenditures this year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Craig?
Mr. Georges, thank you. Can you go into just a little bit of detail on the, under the procedures, internal control testing and evaluation?
Yeah, what we do is there's questionnaires that we have the staff fill out. It talks about who signs checks, who opens the mail, who deposits the money. And we look at those, and then we make sure that, and first we see that we feel that they're reasonable. And then we run through, we call walkthroughs. We take certain transactions, we make sure that what you say that you're doing. Like, one of the steps would be, if somebody does a bank reconciliation, that it's approved by somebody else, so somebody doesn't have total control of that. So if one of Barb's assistants is doing the bank rec, Barb is signing off on the bank reconciliation to make sure it's been approved. So she's got that documented, that's the procedure, but we go through and make sure that happened.
Okay. So it's basically a testing against like fraud or misrepresentation?
Well, we don't really test for fraud. If we find fraud, we would let you know, but we don't test for fraud specifically, but we do test for procedures. But we would let you know if we felt your procedures were such that they had bad internal control that could lead to something like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I'd like to make one comment. You had some information here about student count, in which you stated that the 2021 count was approximately 3,400. I'm assuming that's because the state held our count harmless in spite of a drop. Is that because
Right.
our audited
Yes.
count was actually 3,179?
Yeah, that came
It was
right
not
up.
3,433.
Yeah, that was what we came off of right off the state aid report. So we try to use the same number that they put on there every year.
Okay, I just
For
wanted to
comparison,
make
yeah.
sure that that was
Yeah.
really well understood, that we just didn't suffer the economic loss from the loss of students, but did experience a pretty significant loss.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right, thank you so much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next under presentations, we have a bond update from Plant Moran Cressa. Rob?
All right, good evening, everyone. Good to see you guys again. Today, wanted to present to you an updated dashboard report. We generally bring these to you periodically throughout the process, and we presented one earlier this year before the projects got rolling, and back here today to kind of report on where we're at here through the summer construction. So, handed out a copy of the dashboard to you guys, and then we'll get this sent out so you guys can review the electronic copy and post it and share it. So kind of looking at the front cover page of it is the overall kind of financial summary section for you to kind of give you a snapshot of where we're at in time with everything. So the upper left-hand corner is the goals and objectives. These are really the pillars that were established back in 20, all the way through the the approval of it in early 2020. So we set those goals and objectives and really stuck to those through the duration. The lower left-hand side is the cash flow and finances. You'll see the construction fund deposit for just over $32 million. This is, as a reminder, a 2-series bond program. So the first series sold in 2020, and that was the net fund deposit that we had for the $32,217,000. Shows you the total funds available, what's been paid to date, and this is through June 30th. So everything's been reconciled with between our e-builder program that we use and Barb in the district through June 30th. So now with everything kind of summed up with the audit and stuff that's here, we'll get caught up through date and be working with Barb to update that through today. I mean, we track all that, but just to reconcile total, we've just focused through June 30th up through today. So shows you the amount spent through June 30th there, just over $3 million. The project summary on the top part just, again, gives you a snapshot of the dollars broken down into the different buckets that we have allocated for the project. So at the start, we set up the district-wide funds, the construction, the roofing, and technology, and broke the dollars into those buckets. The district-wide is all the accounts that the district pays direct, the professional fees, the bond closing, legal expenses, permits, insurances, contingency dollars that are all set aside. So that's all set up in the district-wide. The construction is the hard dollar construction aspect of the project for the dollars that are set there. And then the roofing and technology speak for themselves there. That's the bucket set up for each of those within the bond program, totaling the $59,475,000 for the total bond program. You can see the projected commitments for each of those. So through this point, we have $23 million projected in commitments right now with the work that we have going on. To date with that, the actuals approved again is just over the $3 million. So you see the cost to complete through that. And then the forecasted commitment broken down for each of those is really the dollars that we have allocated for the future construction that we start to forecast and put the dollars to it. So that's how we're tracking. And within each of these buckets is multiple line items where we have dollars broken down individually into each of those aspects, and then they roll up. So we're tracking each of those dollars as they go. The unallocated reserve there, as you see, we have noted for $1 million right now. What that is that we're showing is the owner's contingency that we have set up for the project. If you remember when we were going through the pool design and the awards, where we're at with budget, we had an owner contingency, an escalation contingency, some couple different pots set up, and we had used some of that owner's contingency to offset the costs that we were over on the pool when we were going through that design and award project back earlier this summer. So with that, when we pull out the funds that were allocated towards the pool project, we're still left with, right now to date, $1 million sitting there and just an owner contingency that's not set for any specific project related to the bond. So everything that's called out in the bond from the start still has the dollars to it. This is just a separate pot right now that we have that isn't allocated to anything specific into the bond program. And that number throughout will fluctuate as we start to close out projects or do additional things as we go. You'll see that number change as we, for instance, we're closing out the roofing projects here pretty quick for this year. We'll have some contingency dollars coming back that we'll present to you. Those in turn may go into this owner's contingency. We may elect to move them elsewhere, but you'll see maybe we put it back into the owner's contingency and you'll see those dollars fluctuate. So you'll always see them allocated there in the unallocated reserve column of that. And then the estimate to completion is just the dollars left to calculate out that equal to the $59 million. So kind of a live document that we use to always track the costs. And again, these dollars are through June 30th. We'll reconcile again and update those, and you'll see them changing within the upcoming dashboards that we present to you. The committed cost summary down below just gives quick little charts there to show kind of the percentages where we're at with each of the projects and a quick snapshot for what's remaining and what's been committed to date on a percentage basis. So try to give a quick, one-page snapshot that you can see financially where we're at with the project overall. If you flip to the back side of the program, on the right-hand side is the project phasing schedule. So this just gives you the quick overview of how the bond is laid out. Again, this is a 2-series bond program. First series was 2020. Series 2 will be sold in 2024. So in 2020, we started with the design process for all the work we're doing now. We worked through that. We did the turf project. We did a few projects in 2020. 21, we did the renovations at Grogan and Davidson. We're at Anderson doing the new natatorium and weight room addition. We've been working on, we did roofing projects. The design for 22 was also being done during this year. Then you can see in 2022, we're going to do renovations at Allen and Anderson and shelters. We'll continue with the pool project. We'll do some additional roofing projects. 23, we have no construction activity right now planned. That's kind of the break in the series that we have. We'll be focusing mainly on design aspects, getting ready for Series 2. When that sale goes, we can jump right into construction activities and wrap up all the construction here at the end of 2024. So that phasing schedule just gives you a quick snapshot of upcoming work that's planned for each of those. Across the bottom, we have the pictures, kind of give you an update as of the last few weeks of what's been done. The lower right-hand corner shows you the foundations going in for the new pool addition that's going off the back there. They are getting close to wrapping up the foundations. The masons have started out there building some of the walls. They're kind of to their last corner right now, getting some of their last deep underground drainage and storm lines and the sump going in right now to finish that up so they can finish up the foundations and peel out of there. But that picture shows a status of some of the foundations. The next picture is the weight room that's there now. They're cutting in the holes for the new windows that'll be in there along the south side of the building to let light into the old pool area, which will be your new weight room. So the mason's in there cutting in those holes right now into the building. The third picture is the bathroom renovations that we did at Grogan and Davidson. Kind of the model project was the one done at Anderson a couple years ago in the last bond, and we've carried that design through for each of the bathrooms throughout the school. So shows you a snapshot of that, and then the fourth picture is the new flooring in Grogan in one of the classrooms. In the classrooms, we did lighting and flooring in there, and that just shows you the new LVT flooring that's installed in there. So then we look at the 3-month schedule just to kind of hit on some of the projects that are going on and what will be coming down the pipe in the next couple months. So with the natatorium addition in the weight room, the mason's going to finish up those window openings on the new weight room there, get those all the masonry completed on that. They're going to start infilling the existing pool there and pouring that concrete slab. So we'll get that area finished off. That'll allow all the overhead mechanical and electrical work and everything to start occurring in that new weight room there. They'll be accessing that space through one of the windows that are there. They're having that as a temporary construction access on the back side. So you'll start to see those openings there being wrapped up. Along with that, they're continuing with the masonry walls for the new pool addition. They're going to have multiple crews out there working to start getting masonry walls. So in the next couple weeks, you'll really start to see the building take shape back there. With one of the key dates is they're targeting in mid-November, the concrete precast slabs are set to arrive. Actually, towards the end of November, they're going to set those, and those go over the locker room area, which are then going to be the floor for the new seating over top of looking down over the pool. So that's a major milestone they have, is those precast slabs showing up here around, I think, November 22nd or so is the date to get those set. So that's a big milestone they're shooting for, and then they're continuing with mechanical and electrical, all the underground plumbing that's going in those areas. So a lot of work right now under the ground that you don't really see, but you're going to start seeing that structure come out of the ground here in the next month. With that, then, we're looking at the 2022 renovations at Allen, Shelters, and Anderson. So TMP, our architect, is finishing up the drawings right now. They're set to have a final review set done next week for us to do a quick review and summary with each of the staffs at the building. We met with the principals a couple weeks ago to kind of go through the documents and make sure we got everything covered. So they're going through those changes right now. We'll get those out in about the second week in November, and Granger's gonna put together those RFPs, get it out on the street here in November for bidding for next summer's work. The roofing at Allen and Shelters, we have that project out for bid right now. The roofing consultant, Intertech PSI, issued those on Monday of this week out to bidders. So we have a pre-bid meeting this Friday, and then bids are due in early December with that. So it is out for bid right now. Roofing is an interesting category right now. It'll be interesting to see how the bids come in. It is one that has substantial lead times, getting material pricing, getting materials for insulation, fasteners, basically all the accessories with the roof is an interesting market right now. We're trying to get out early, hopefully get some interest with the projects and see how they come in. So one thing I noted there was the award recommendation to be dependent on pricing, availability, and material procurement. So that's one that we're definitely going to have to probably take a look at when they come in, evaluate them, make sure is the pricing in line. Can we get the materials in time? We're hearing some products might not be available till August of next year or September, and they're saying that right now. So what's it really going to be when we get there? We don't know. So our target is to get the bids out now. Let's see where they're at and start evaluating them. So we'll get those in here, and we'll keep you guys posted, and hopefully we're coming back with a recommendation with good news on how they come in. So the other thing we're working on right now for November is the branding. It's been a big push. We have the packages for the light pole banners, the athletic entrance, and the wayfinding signage is all in progress right now. Materials are being procured. They're starting to fabricate some of the stuff. We just got our paint products, so the painter should be out in the next couple days to start painting at the athletic entrance, the red band that'll go in there to kind of make that stand out. So even paint's a product that it's taken a couple weeks just to get paint for the contractor. So we just got word today that it just came in, so we're working on scheduling him with a nice day here in the next couple days to get out there and finish that. But those 3 projects in November, the materials should be in, and they'll start installing all of those items. We're also working on the STA logos for the entrances. There's a package out for that. We actually got pricing in on Friday. We're evaluating those right now. And the hope is to bring we will have a recommendation package for you guys at the next meeting for those entrance signage for each of those. So we're evaluating those right now. And within the next couple days, we'll be able to get a award rec in and over and be at the next meeting to present those to you. And then we're also working to finalize the documents for the new Anderson building marquee that'll go out on the road, the district-wide digital marquee that is targeted to be installed over at Davidson on the corner there, the football stadium entrance archway, and then the football press box viewing platform and signage. Are all packages that are pretty close. We're putting together the final touches. We actually should have the building marquee documents completed by Friday, so that should go out next week for pricing. And then the other 2, we're just finishing up some of the electrical and doing some field investigation for a few of those items. So the target is to get those completed here in November and out for pricing. So big push on the branding. We get into December, the addition and the weight room, continuing with the masonry, structural steel set to arrive in early December. That was one of the packages that we brought to you early to lock in with that contractor to meet a December date. And as of right now, he's still on target to have it here in early December for the joists and the roof deck. And then, so they'll start to enclose that building, which will allow them to continue with the mechanical rough-ins for both the weight room and the addition. So by the end of the year, you'll start to see that structure kind of be completed back there, and they'll be able to start working inside that space. The renovations for Allen Shelters and Anderson will be bringing, our goal is to get the proposals in December, start evaluating those, go through the interview process, the post-bid interviews and reviews, and start developing the GMP with Granger Construction to bring you guys the award recommendation at a January board meeting. So we'll be working through the month of December with all those post-bids and pulling together that package for next summer's renovation work at Allen Shelters and Anderson. Same with the roofing. If everything goes well and we award a contract, we'll start writing the contracts and procuring the materials in December. And then the branding, we have the STA logos at Anderson. If we bring that to you at the next meeting, the hope would be by December they're on site installing those at the entrances to the main entrance and the athletic entrance. So looking ahead to January, a couple things with the addition and weight room, continuing with the masonry work that's going to be ongoing for a few months. They'll start completing the roof deck, start installing the actual roofing, and then that'll allow them to get inside the building to start hanging all their pipe supports, all their piping, everything overhead, kind of get that space finished off, and then early next year, kind of looking ahead even beyond January, start digging for that pool. So the contractor will be in there here as soon as they can kind of get that structure up, get the overhead work done. The pool contractor will come in and start excavating out for the pool and get started with that. So some goals and some key dates that the contractors are working towards right now with that. And then in January, we'll bring you the award recommendation package for Allen Shelters and Anderson for approval at a January board meeting. Get those contracts issued and start getting materials ordered so we have it here by summer of next year to start those renovations. So I know a lot of information there, but kind of try to give you a snapshot of the next 3 months, some of the key highlights of what's going on. So with that, is there any questions that answer for you?
Thanks, Rob. Any questions? Dr. Paponia.
So, do we have any notable technology upgrades for this year? And then, do we have any cameras, security cameras that are gonna be installed either this year or next year?
Yeah, the cameras, they are working on getting a contractor out to start the design. They have actually, I think, started some design work. And within the next couple weeks, they should be out here starting work on layouts and figure out camera placements, work at each of the schools and come up with some designs. And with hope that, you know, by the end of the year, early next year, to start installing cameras throughout the district. So the technology group is making a pretty big push right now to try to get some of that work going with that. So,
Okay, thank you.
and the rest of the technology, I'll have to get you, I have not been to the last couple meetings on what they have going. I know they have been meeting regularly. So I will get an update from them and send that through of some of the key points of what they have working on and some of the packages they have coming up for that.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions from the board? Right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, that takes us to item G, superintendent update.
I just have a few items. First, it's really awesome to see all the teachers here and staff, not just teachers, representing their Titanism, and it's exciting to see. We do have phenomenal teachers. I do want to say congratulations to Shelters for scoring in the top 30% of Michigan's elementary schools. This is the first year that they've made that designation, and it's exciting to see where our schools will fall over time. I know that the work that our teachers have done and do on a daily basis is second to none. And the number of parents who talk about the quality experiences that they have in our schools because of our teachers and staff. So thank you to all of you for making that happen. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew as a board that we are getting something special made for this moment, and when it is ready, we will invite shelter staff to come and receive that award in a more formal board ceremony. So that will come. We do have our district PTO meeting. We've started that last year. It's been a really successful opportunity for parents across buildings to have conversations together and to align some of their activities. That is scheduled for 7 this Thursday. I do also want to invite the board to the pancake breakfast at Anderson High School on Friday morning at 8 a.m. They are recognizing students' achievement that morning, so all of our board is invited to join, so I hope you do get a chance to be there. We have lots of fun Halloween activities planned this week, and just a reminder to parents, it is a half day on Friday. I am noticing on Facebook there's lots of questions about that, so yes, it is. So lots of fun activities this week, and it's just another week in Southgate, so.
Thank you. Item H is finance update. Ms. Wilson, did you have anything that you needed to add?
Just one quick comment. While we are far away from June 30, we still have one last little piece before we can close the year out, and that is our financial information database, which is due Monday. And so we're currently working on that now that we have our audit completed. Yeah, it's about a 4-month process to end a year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Takes us to item I, which is our consent agenda, which consists of minutes from the October 12, 2021 regular board meeting with a closed session and our HR update.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Paponio. Supported by Mr. Craig. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, motion carries. Takes us to our action items for this evening. The first action item is the approval of the redirection of bond contingency funds to baseball infield restructure. Do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, I'm going to pass this on to Mr. Kokoski, who's going to talk a little bit about how this particular project has kind of surfaced after some work that they've been doing on drain tiles.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, so the award recommendation that we have here today for you is for some resurfacing work of the baseball field at Anderson High School. So as part of the initial bond program and an earlier recommendation that was brought to you this summer was to put in the new drainage system on the infield of the baseball. In the last bond, we did the outfield, and then this bond, the intent was to do the infield, which we did. So as we were wrapping that up and talking with the contractor, talking with the staff at the high school a little bit, they brought up a lot of their concerns were on the infield itself with retaining water and not draining. So initially, they had asked to have some drainage put in the infield or try to help get rid of some of that water, which with the dirt, that's not really intended to seep down through. They want that to shed off into the grass where the drainage works and the water drains through the grass and the dirt area to the drainage that's there. So the problem really was with the dirt infields that were there were lower than the grass that was there. So your infield was holding water. So Jacob and his crew had talked to a couple of the contractors. We met with the designer, we met with the contractor, and came up with a scope to basically rebuild, resurface the infield and the field for the baseball. So the proposal that's here today really includes removing the excess or the material that's out there now throughout there, a lot of the overgrowth, killing off the weeds, getting everything that's on the warning track and all the dirt infield. It's rototilling the infield. It's bringing in up to 4 inches of the new Dura Edge Classic mix that's used out there to raise that surface up so that it sheds towards the grass to where all the drainage is and allows the field to be a little bit drier. So with that, the initial project was just for the drainage, and we did not have a contingency set up that was substantial enough for this. So through talking, we'd like to bring the award recommendation here today for $73,594.06 for Backer Landscape, who is the contractor on site working right now. They have the manpower, the equipment, the ability to do this now, get the work done today, but we needed to allocate funds because we don't have the contingency dollars with that. So the intent would be to allocate it from the owner contingency that was identified in the dashboard that we have set aside under that unallocated funds that we had, was to pull from that for now to fund this. And then at the end of the term, when we wrap up the turf project, we wrap up some of the roofing projects, things like that, if we have dollars back, backfill that into the owner's contingency to offset this cost. So we don't want to allocate those dollars now because those projects aren't 100% closed out, but we feel we will have the funds there to backfill it when needed. But we really wanted to get moving on this project to get it done here this fall so it's ready for play next summer. So that's the recommendation today is for Backer Landscaping and a total amount of $73,594.06 to complete this work.
Thanks. Are there any questions for Superintendent Irvine or Mr. Palowski? Mr. Sage first, then Mr. Lamas?
So when they initially assessed this wasn't found with the infield?
No, I mean, we had talked, it was one of those, from the 2015 bond, the intent was the outfield drainage, and that's what we did. And then there was talk through the staff and everything that the infield drainage needed it. So we actually looked at doing it during that time. We just weren't able to get it into all the other athletic work that was done. When we did the softball field and the track and all that, we couldn't do the infield, so that got pulled over, and it was really just, the dollars were allocated just for the infield drainage. We did not have the consultant come out and survey the fields or have any contractors look at it. They were actually groomed. We did some grooming on it, but we didn't raise any levels or anything. But when the contractor was out there now, it had been overgrown. The edges of the fields and stuff were overgrown, not defined. So it really just needed a lot of work to get it back up and brought that material in. So,
And that's the concern. It seems like we're doing things twice to get it the right way, and then we're not maintaining it. And that's when we talked about budgeting moving forward, but
Can I interject? I think the issue too, though, is, and those of you that know me know I know nothing about this sport of baseball at all. So, the outfield was our first one. A drainage of an outfield is different than a drainage of the infield. We had it approved for the drainage of the outfield, which is grass, which is easier. The drainage of the infield has to be crowned so the water runs off into the foul territory. So it's really not one thing. We had it approved for one thing, and then they found a different problem, I think, when they looked at it. It really is two different
But when the
things.
drainage got approved for the infield, that wasn't addressed.
Well, that should have been at that point, absolutely, because you can see if the field's, below.
That's all I'm saying.
I got you.
Mr. Lamas?
So I'm still confused. What's the root cause? Describe the issue with me. Water collects on the base pass or it's dirt?
Yeah, your dirt level is basically lower than your grass level, so, I mean, anything that gets in the grass is draining down, but when it's on the field from first to second, second to third, around the warning tracks and stuff, it's holding that water because the dirt doesn't allow the water to drain, and it's not running off. So we actually, like Mr. Green said, that needs to be built up to shed the water away onto the grass, where it can get into the drainage systems that are there.
So the root cause of the problem is that where the dirt is, the base pass, if I'm correct, are 2 inches or 3 inches too shallow?
Correct.
So this, if we raise it with whatever material we're gonna raise it with, that'll end the problem?
That is, and then from that point, maintained and keep that field up, yeah, it should, I'm assuming every year, every couple of years, there'll have to be a little bit of maintenance, but yeah, that'll bring it up and that should solve, the majority of the problems moving forward.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. So we need to ask for a motion for this approval of the redirection of bond contingency funds to baseball infield restructure.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the redirection of bond contingency funds to the restructure of the baseball infield as presented in the amount of $73,594.06.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Green. Motion by Dr. Pomponio. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Last action item of the evening is the approval of the revisions to policy number 2007 and 5003. Superintendent Irvine.
Yes, the policy subcommittee met last week to discuss a couple of items. The first item has to do with the sale of energy drinks such as Monster, Bang, or other energy drinks that really have not just very high caffeine, but other energy boosting herbs or anything else that might be added. I think everyone is a little unsure about what might be there. But the bigger concern that we have is under federal rules, if the drink has no calories or no sugar, then it doesn't trigger the prohibition of sale during the school day. So as long as a drink could have 0 calories, because it may have aspartame or some kind of sugar substitute, then it can still be sold. And so we have to make a decision about whether or not we want to take a position on energy drinks. The subcommittee did want to take that position officially, and that we have language here that does carve that out in the health and wellness portion of the policy.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
The second revision has to do with what we encountered at our last meeting, which was the purchase of the Asher boiler. And our policy currently does not carve out an exception for emergency purchases. And so, although it has been a practice in the district for a period of time, and there is even in the law an opportunity for us to make an emergency purchase that surpasses the state threshold, that is something that our policy really needed to adjust to. So we talked about it as a subcommittee and wanted to include language that would say that in emergency situations, and we talked a little bit about what we thought emergency situations might be. So an emergency situation would be considered to be something that's very real and immediate danger to the health or wellness of students or staff, as one of those. The other is immediate danger of facility damage. So for instance, if we were in the dead of winter, we had a boiler burst, it's flooding the building, we're not going to wait to have that replaced, even for 18 hours to hold an emergency special board meeting. That's just something we have to get to right away. Or else we're going to find ourselves in a much more significant financial responsibility. We did talk, though, about situations where we may need to make that decision, and it is something that couldn't wait until the next board meeting, but doesn't have that immediate sense of danger right in that moment. And we really felt like the Asher boiler kind of sat there in that space. And we talked a little bit about how responsive the board has been when we've needed to call a special board meeting, like we did this summer, and that we do have that option in the case where it kind of is in that gray area. How emergency are we talking about? And I think there was a general feeling that we wanted to stay as strongly in the emergency camp as possible, and not go too far into allowing those decisions to be made without board approval. So understanding that may mean that we have to call special board meetings more often if we go that route. At this point in time, we're just kind of looking at when our next scheduled board meeting is and deciding whether or not we can wait until then. But if the board is very comfortable with understanding that an alternative is to call a special board meeting and are ready to hear that we need to do that in some cases, then we'd like to go ahead and kind of accept that as part of this policy change. So the actual wording of the policy adjusts to say that in an emergency situation, here we go. It reads, the current policy requires board approval for special types, of purchases. Although the state law provides for emergency purchases for facility repairs, the board policy does not. The proposed revision and builds in the conditions under which the emergency may be made. And the actual language here just adds at the end, purchase in excess of that amount shall be brought to the board for approval with notice to the board in cases of emergency in which the health and safety of students and staff are compromised or facility damage is imminent. The board authorizes the superintendent to make a necessary purchase that would otherwise require advance approval. The purchase must become before the board no later than the next scheduled board meeting. It does not carve out the special meeting, except that it defines a little bit more what the emergency is. So this is the language that I did send back to the policy subcommittee to take a look at, and if they were not concerned, but I understand, Dr. Paponio, you had maybe some other edits that you wanted to consider.
Yes. So the initial front page here, this is the policy we did have that said that the superintendent may call a special board meeting. That was in the language for,
that's just in the explanation part of it when we were talking about it. But in the, it is always assumed that we can always call a special board meeting, that as long as we give 18 hours for that.
excuse me.
So if we wanted to actually include language about a special board meeting, we can. I do think that it's an inference that if the board hasn't accepted that as an emergency, that you automatically, it's not relieving the superintendent of that responsibility to get that meeting scheduled. So this policy just focuses on defining emergency a little more strictly. And then assuming that if you don't have that exception, there is a responsibility to get it done, and if you're concerned about the next board meeting, then you're going to have to call a special board meeting.
So that's the reason why I had inquired on the policy committee meeting. I thought the intent in that meeting was to add the language for the special meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I wanted to make sure that that was included, because it wasn't there to begin with. It was vague, and it also covers you too. It was in our discussion to have the special meeting, so it covers the superintendent as well. That's why I wanted to have that in there. So I just added after require advanced, or before advanced approval require a special meeting. I just thought that that was more appropriate because it's important in that particular situation.
Yeah, what I don't want is if we are in time for a regularly scheduled meeting. I don't want us to write in that we have to have a special board meeting for that purchase if we do have to also have that. That was the only pushback that, you know.
So my thinking was the opposite. It was, okay, if it was, because we had something that was purchased in an emergency, that when we came to the board meeting, it actually was not as an emergency that it was made out to be, the purchase was made. So if it was causing harm or to the facility or people, then I wanted to make sure that it said special meeting, because that way, if you're making $1 million purchase, it would cover you and us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the case that we actually came to this policy moment has a lot to do with the fact that what could have happened didn't end up happening, which is the weather did not turn as fast as we thought it might have turned. And we know in Michigan, we can't predict that. So we can look backwards and know that we definitely probably could have waited, although I will say that the second boiler isn't in yet, and we've had some cold days. So it is good that we got it in when we got it in, and but I do understand how important it is that we all feel like the intent of the policy language is preserved as much as possible. So I'll just leave it open to any discussion that the board might have about whether or not they feel it's necessary to put in language about a special meeting or not.
Okay, so that was my intent for the policy committee meeting with that particular policy because of the situation that occurred. So I thought that even if it's just that word after approval or before approval, that's what I thought we had a discussion on, so we would cover you and us. So I would prefer that we would have that special meeting in there.
Yeah, the concern was to make sure you were covered in the event you had to make the decision, that you had board approval with that. But the verbiage on it, is that something that we could push to next meeting or no?
Well, that was the whole purpose of the request for that meeting, was to add special, and we had the conversation, and just even the word special meeting, I mean, I'll go along with whatever the board prefers, but I just thought that the intent, having a special meeting, so we don't spend $2 million on a product that's an emergency.
No, understood.
Yeah, I think that, why don't we go ahead and call the question, then we can handle this in discussion.
We need a motion.
But we need a motion first.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Craig.
I'll make a motion to approve the revisions to policies 2007 and 5003 as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that motion? Support, anybody?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Green. All right, so now we can, have some discussion on this.
I don't have any issues with the way it's presented here. I mean, it basically says if there's an emergency, then we gotta take care of that, whatever that is.
Mr. Green?
So in this, I mean, Dr. Pomponio, I understood it the same way she did, to cover, and Mr. Sage, the three of us on that policy. However we want to word it, I'm okay with. I'll go with the majority, but the intent was in our discussion from what I thought was to cover the superintendent and this board if we had to call an emergency meeting. So however the verbiage is, whatever everybody's okay with, you know, I'm not going to die on that hill, so.
Right. And I just want to say that, you know, on the record, I just wanted to be specific, and if there was an actual urgent situation where we needed it, if the water was busting everywhere and there was harm to people, that we would make sure that it was in the policy that was stating special meetings. So I just want that on the record, that I wanted to call that, and that's what our discussion was on the policy. But again, I'll go along with the board.
Mr. Craig?
I just don't wanna have to wait for a special meeting, cause
Right.
then
Well,
the emergency's gonna be on. I mean, we're gonna be in the emergency for days while we get a meeting together, which
it's not days, it's
kinda
18
what-
hours.
I don't know, if you tried to wrangle this board together in a couple hours, I'd say you'd miss, cause, I mean, it's hard to, I mean, we've had 2 weeks' notice and we can't get a special board meeting together sometimes. We're talking about an emergency though, so I think that's, we trust our administration to know what an emergency is and handle it appropriately. They do it now. It's just not formally in the policy to allow it.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, but what was talked about at the meeting was that to cover Mrs. Irvine as well as the board was that when this happened previously, there was Zoom, right? So you could have a quorum on Zoom to make the decision, and it was like that. And it was more of a basis of making sure that, everything's covered, across the board. Not just the board, but Mrs. Irvine, if she makes the decision and it goes south for whatever reason, that she had assistance in making the decision. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
That's
I
what
think
the
that's what this
discussion
does.
was.
I think we have,
I think this covers it.
so we have a motion on the table. Why don't I call the question on that? It'll live or die, and if it fails, then we could present another motion that's more appropriate. So let's call the question now. All those in favor of the approval of revision to policy 2007 and 5003, say yes.
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 Any opposed?
No.
All right, can we roll call that vote, Teresa? Just for the record.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio?
No.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Freitas?
Yes.
Mr. Lamos?
Yes.
Mr. Sage?
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer?
Yes. All right, thank you. Motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to item K, which is employee representatives. Any employee representatives scheduled to speak?
Scheduled to speak, no.
All right, seeing none, we'll go back to the board here. Oh, sorry. All right, employee representatives, as with the citizens' comments, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and your address, and then please present your comment to the board.
Okay. My name is Christy Velarde, and I am currently an 8th grade science teacher at Davidson Middle School, where I've taught for over 20 years, and I'm also a Southgate Anderson alumnus. I am currently the middle school science department chair, co-advisor of the Davidson Student Council, and co-sponsor of the class of 25. I have also coached basketball, volleyball, and softball at the middle school for my beloved Titans. My husband Frank also teaches for the high school in Southgate. Like Ryan and Jen Furcus, we met in the halls of Southgate. I am addressing the board tonight on behalf of the students of Southgate, especially my own two, who attend Anderson High School. We currently reside in Woodhaven, which many of you know have excellent facilities. When it came to time to enroll our kids in school, it was a tough decision. We live right down the street from an elementary school, which would have made it very convenient as a neighborhood school. However, we chose to send our kids to Southgate schools. The reason for this decision is simple: the teachers. A couple of years later, North Point Elementary closed, and we had another decision to send our kids to shelters or switch to Woodhaven. Again, we chose Southgate because of the amazing staff. Finally, when it came for the time for my oldest son to enter high school, we were once again confronted with a difficult choice where to send him. Frankie is a varsity swimmer as well as an honors student, and Woodhaven had just built a brand new pool. And again, we chose Southgate for the teachers. The staff at Southgate is way more valuable to my husband and I than any facility will ever be. The teachers in Southgate have given my children some of their best memories. They have chaperoned Harvest Fest, Bingo for Bucks, and end of the year carnivals every year, always showing up and stepping up for our kids. They have planned countless field trips, including overnight trips to Washington, D.C. and Chicago, all without stipends. They have chaperoned homecoming and prom. The staff at Southgate have helped mold my kids into responsible and successful young adults. We are forever grateful to all of the staff that have taught, coached, mentored, and sponsored the clubs that my kids and all Southgate students have been a part of. The staff in Southgate is second to none. Please make sure we do not lose any more staff and take the steps necessary to be able to continue to secure the very best teachers that our community has become accustomed to and deserves. We are why Southgate is the best place for students and parents.
Thank you.
Hi. All right, 3 more minutes.
Just please state your name and your address.
I'm Jackie McKay. This will be my 27th year teaching in Southgate. I started when Alan was the 9th grade annex to the high school. From there, I went to Davidson and taught 8th and 9th grade art for about 5 years, and after that, I went to the high school, and I've been there ever since. This kind of talk makes me nervous, but don't judge my teaching. I'm very good with the kids. Okay. All right, I've been a department chair since 2002. I was a student council sponsor, and I'm available every day after school for kids who need extra help or who need studio time to finish up projects. I'm one of the rare few people here who is not from downriver. I grew up in Lapeer, Michigan, and an art teaching position brought me, oh my goodness, I'm already getting, brought me to Southgate. I lived in Lincoln Park, then I moved to Wyandotte, and now I live in Brownstown with my husband Jamie, who we also met at Anderson. So it's a big love fest, I guess. So I never lived in Southgate, but all 3 of my kids went to Southgate schools. My 2 older children have already graduated from Anderson, and our youngest daughter, named Charlie, is in 6th grade at Davidson. She also would go to Woodhaven if we sent her to school where we lived. But we, along with many other teachers in our district, just like Frank and Christy, chose to have our kids go to Southgate. Some other names you might be familiar with are Paul Piez, Colette Norcia, Eric Druzniak and Kate Budzinski, Jeff and Stephanie Blaskevich, Teresa Severance, Wendy Nowak, Dave Cadlis, Shannon Swager, and more, people whose kids have already graduated, all teachers who do not live in Southgate. We choose Southgate, like Christy said, because of the teachers. We are good people and we are here for the kids. Just yesterday, Charlie said, history class was horrible today. Mr. Grabitz wasn't here. What kid says that when there's a sub? Mr. Grabitz also had my older daughter, Casey, who falls in the autism spectrum, years ago, and he made her the manager of the girls' basketball team at Garish. Her response to me was, I finally made a team, Mom. Jody Thomas, who taught my daughter at Allen, always asked Charlie when her hockey games were so she could come watch her play. Josh Shively, who teaches at Davidson, who coaches the cross-country team at Davidson, has the kids run to 7-Eleven on Fridays while he drives in his car. And he foots the bill for all of them, for Slurpees. My son Ethan graduated from Eastern Michigan a couple years ago. Is that 3 minutes? Is that what that means? I'm almost done, I promise. He just graduated from Eastern Michigan a couple years ago with a construction management degree, and he contributes much of his success to the teachers in Southgate. I have a million stories, but I don't have time. The teachers here have helped me teach, raise, and mold my children, just like Christy. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true, and I know why I choose Southgate. It's for the teachers. Many of you have children in the district too, and in a world of school of choice, I'm wondering why you choose to stay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other employee representatives? All right, we'll bring it back to the table here for information and announcements. And first up, we have Mr. Freitas.
What?
Yeah, I know. Go figure, I'm talking. I just want to wish my daughter, McKenna Freitas, a happy birthday. Today is her 17th birthday. And congratulate everyone who took the PSAT test today. I know it was a challenge, but they did it, so thank you. And thanks to everybody who's molded and been a part of their high school career.
Appreciate it. Dr. Pomponio.
I can never get too tired to tell the teachers just how much I appreciate you and how much I admire you. And I, for one, am one of your biggest cheerleaders here. And I didn't think I was an enemy, but I'm here to support you 100%. You guys have been, I've watched you work, been a big part of my kids' education and you work hard. You work day, night, and fundraisers, projects, extracurricular things. So I see that. I'm in the buildings. I see all the hard work that you do. So I absolutely do not feel bad for saying it again and again and again, that I appreciate all the teachers, the staff, the administrators, and the names that I hold dear to me are Babiak, Gutner, Clark, Kemp, Colmitz, Wesley, Doyle, Furcus, Dwayne, Dunholder, Bias, Hensman, Kruger, Reynolds, Velarde, Walters, Komet, and Gravitz. I mean, these are just some, but, you know, we here all appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Mr. Green.
Thank you. Fun night, huh? So, just a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to get, Rob asked me, for anybody who has children, the Burger King on Eureka Road is hosting a community effort for a trunk or treat from 3:30 to 6:30 this Saturday. So if you have children, the Burger King on Eureka Road, so that's a community effort for us. On that note, there's a couple of things that I try to attend in the schools, and I can't be everywhere, obviously, because I'm a teacher also. So I'm just going to put that out there, and I think everybody knows that. That's not a secret. I appreciate, I went to the trunk or treat at Ford Line. I missed the one in Grogan, so I went to the one at Ford Line. I think they did a wonderful job. Congratulations to those who took the PSAT today. Absolutely fabulous news about shelters. Congratulate all the sports teams. And it's not about wins, and I'm a coach too. And, you know, at the end of the year, when you go to everybody goes to the playoffs or whatever, for the most part, in most sports, at the end of the year, only one team's going to be happy. Everybody else is going to end in what they consider a defeat. So that's not the end all means. The band is absolutely amazing at the high school. I drive by it. I've heard the band. I've actually sat outside, not tried to get in the way. I don't know much about it because I can't do that because I'm not good at any instrument like that. But I listen to it, and I think it's amazing. So the success of the band, I know that I'm proud of my daughter, Carly, and I'm proud of the people at Davison right now, and all those congratulating that were put in the National Junior Honor Society. All the winter programs that are starting, and so many good things, the pancake breakfast at the high school. And I just have to say the same thing, is that I appreciate you being here, and you're passionate, and it's not easy, and I'm pretty confident we're going to get this done, and I know that's what you guys want. That's what we want. It really is. I don't know everybody. I'm trying to scan the crowd, and my glasses are kind of messed up because I think I need a new prescription, but my daughter goes here. My daughter's been here since kindergarten, and the Grogan people, I'm not dismissing anybody else that I see in the stands right now, at least that I know, and if I miss somebody, I apologize, but Ms. Kemp, Ms. Faze, Mr. Porter, Ms. Thrasher, Miss Altizer, she loves you guys. And in the middle school, so far, like Miss Velarde, Mr. Komet, that I know, you guys do a great job. And I know I'm kind of shaking in my voice because it's kind of hard to talk about it, and maybe it sounds like I'm grandstanding, but I really believe this from my heart. We're going to get this done. We're going to figure it out. So that's all I got to say. Thanks.
All right, I wanted to thank you all for being here tonight, and I know it's been a long meeting tonight with a couple long presentations, so thank you for staying with us throughout the entire meeting. And I also look forward to seeing the shelters folks in for a more formal recognition. But thank you so much, and with that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Mr. Lamas, supported by Mr. Craig. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. 8:42 p.m. Thank you.